Good morning, it's me again. This is CIS 101, and I hope you guys are doing well. I hope you are continuing to observe the social distance, washing your hands, wearing mask, and hopefully this thing will be gone very soon. I cannot tell you whom to vote for, but if you're able to, please make sure that you actively participate. It's one of the responsibilities of a citizen. Civic responsibility. Okay, back to CIS 101, couple of announcements. We're making progress. Most of you are doing very well, and your grades should be posted on CUNY by the end of this week. But just bird's eye view, I think we're doing very well. The simulations are going very well. I have not had any challenges with many of you, and the few I have, I think we've been able to resolve them. The same thing with the mid-level assignments, so make sure that you are doing them. And like I've always said, the best way to reach me is the phone. Send me a short text message and I'll get back to you, or you can call me. Sometimes I respond, sometimes I don't, and that's not because I'm rude, it's just because sometimes I get very many calls, like maybe most of you are. We are in the election period, and that is just the nature of the game. Email, I'm still having some issues with my email, but I'm checking them from time to time, so you can also use that means to communicate. Discussion board, also very, very important. You can use that. I check that regularly. This is supposed to be an online class, and I think at the beginning of the semester I was trying to poll you and see whether there is a time that you can all be available when we can touch base, and I didn't get a good response, so that's why we are doing things the way we are doing. I have been able to meet with a couple of you through online sessions, and this is what you can usually do is if you need to discuss something, you can send me a text message and then we can schedule a time. And usually we've been meeting through this link, through the office hours. And what usually you'll do is you log in here, and if this is not available and you let me know, I can create a session for you, and then you log in here and we can discuss some things. I've been able to do that, and that's what we actually are supposed to be doing through Blackboard Collaborate. Also, office hours, I'm usually available on Tuesdays between 10 and 12, and you can come through the same session, and also outside of those hours. So we are a little bit more liberal because of the nature of the class. So I try to make myself available as much as possible. So this is another of those YouTube videos, and this is optional. I'm just trying to provide some resource here that you can use. It's not that we're trying to teach you through YouTube videos, it's just how the class is structured. An ideal situation will be whereby all the students will meet and then we can have a session, but we have not been able to do that. Okay, so for this week's assignment, we are almost finishing with Microsoft Excel. So this is week 10, week 11. You'll continue working on the end of the Microsoft Excel project. So that's for next week. And then the week after that, we'll venture into Microsoft Access. So I think actually this is week 13. So week 12, you'll continue working on that. And probably week 13 is when we get into Microsoft Access, correct? So Microsoft Access is a little bit more challenging compared with what you've been working on. So what I'm going to ask you is make sure, first of all, you have access to Microsoft Access, and you can get it through the school. Call the IT help desk, let them know you're taking this class and you need to have access to that. And if you have that, you should be ready for that. So what I'm going to do is I will briefly walk you through, give you some hints on how you're going to be finishing this week's mid-level exercise. And you always open that file, and then you can use any of these documents here. Now they have some information from your book and you can go through all that. If you are not able to, if you want to go to your book, I've actually put chapter 5 and chapter 6. If you go to the date on my IT lab and you click December 18, you'll be able to see the A-text, and I think you can use that. So I copied this file from your book, and like what I usually say is I like to have my files next to each other. This is a little bit smaller, and maybe not even that clear. Yeah, but I'm hoping it's going to be clear in your notes. Okay, and I'll try to maybe open the Excel file too. Okay, so usually what I'll do is I'll have a split screen like that, so I can see both of my files in here. You don't have to do that. So this is taken from page 447, is the mid-level exercise, and you have the housing construction cost variables. So we have all the instructions. This one is a little bit shorter, and you have the file over here. So we are incorporating a number of concepts that we have covered in chapter 6. Always make sure you click enable editing, so that allows you to make changes into your file, and you can go ahead and specify where you're going to be saving your file. So I have that, and you have Elijah. So there's some information right here that you can read and see exactly what they're trying to do. And then of course you have some provided data over here for the estimates. So there is the base house, and then there is the interior design upgrades, exterior upgrades, and the total estimate for the house. So you're going to be making some predictions and some calculations right here. So we have opened that file, and then it says select B9, B15 and all that, and assign appropriate range names. So range names, you've covered that in chapter 6. Is basically naming cells so that you can use those names which are more appropriate or easier to identify instead of using the cell. So like for instance, this cell right here is D9. That's the cell address. Instead of using D9, you can give this a name, and then you're going to be using that in your computation. So it is easier to remember. It is easier to also use in a formula. So there are different techniques that you can use to assign this. Okay, so that's what we have. So we're going to be creating range, and like I mentioned before, the range name, and there are different techniques that you can use to help you do that. So we are supposed to create a range name for this cell here, a range name for this cell here, and a range name for this cell. And you can click the cell here, and then you come in here and you type the name that you want for, in this case, base house price. And remember, it can only be one word, so you can use the underscore to join the letters. Same thing over here. You just click here, and then you come to the name box and you type that. Click here, come to the name box and you type that. Or the easiest way is actually you can automate that. So because you're doing a couple of them, what you do is you highlight those two cells, and then because they're not contiguous, you click the control key, do the same thing down here, and do the same thing down here. And basically what will happen is the system will create a name box for this cell, and this cell using a variation of the names on the left. So you'll come to the formulas and you say create from selection. You could have done the define if you're doing it from that. So just click create from the selection, and then make sure that the left column is selected, because you're saying you want to use this information here and this information here, this information here, to create a name box for the cell right here. So that's why you have to make sure that the left column is selected. Then you click OK, and by default the system will do that for you. So if you want to check that you've done that, you click inside this cell and you'll see that the name is right here. Do the same thing here. You have that name over there, and you can see they have the underscore to make sure that it is only one name. Same thing right here, you have that. So the next item asks you to use that. Click cell B25 and use the newly created range names to create a formula. So right here we are going to be getting the formula, and the formula will be made up of this value here plus this value here plus this value here. So you can just come in here, this value here. You come in here, you say equals to, and you can click that cell, and you see now we have, instead of having the columns and the rows as the cell reference, we have the range name. And then you can come in here and you say plus, you click, what is that? The other one right there. And then you say plus, you have that value over, oh, sorry, not that. Where's the other range name? Right here, exterior upgrades plus, no, actually I think I made a mistake. Yeah, I made a mistake in creating the range names, so it should be this one here. Let me do that quick. You have that. So I don't think we need the range name for this value here. So come in here and you have that plus that plus that, because those are the three items that make up the price of the house. Okay, so we have the base house, the interior upgrades, and the exterior upgrades. And actually I think the lot price also should be part of that. Is it total exterior upgrades plus the lot price? Yeah, so this should include this value here. Okay, so we have that as the total price of the house. So they are a little bit backwards, but that should do the work. Okay, so we're done with that. Now use GoalSeek to determine the total finished square footage to meet the total cost goal of 350. So we want to see if they want to pay only 350 for the house, what should be the total square footage. So GoalSeek is one of the tools that we can use to help us do that, and you access that through data. You go to Hotiv and then you say GoalSeek. And one of the problem with this assignment is they're not using the same names in the question and also in the data, so it might be a little bit confusing. But in this case, what they're asking us is to use GoalSeek to determine the total finished square footage to meet the total cost goal of 350. So this value here is the one you're going to be setting to the value that you are given, 350, 1, 2, 3, by changing this value here to the square footage. So we want to see, instead of paying this much, if you only want to pay 350, what should be the total square footage for your house? And then if you click OK, the system does go ahead, does some computation for you, and you can see you want to have square footage of the basement to be 991 and the square footage should be 2791. So they change that value, and that's how much you're going to be able to pay for that. So the lot stays the same and all the other values stay the same. The only thing that changes is that value up over there. Enter a series of total square footage ranging from that to that, increments of that in this range. So right here you can maximize that a little bit, move it a little bit that way so you can see everything. And basically what we are going to be doing in this part here is we want to see the different values of the total square footage. How much is that going to be? And this video might actually run out of, I'm trying to keep them to 15 minutes. So when this runs out, I'm going to create another one for 15 minutes, and you can hopefully follow through and see what you should be working on. Okay, so enter the series in the range. So first of all is always identify the cell range. So D6, where's my D6? That's my D6. That's how I know, all the way to somewhere down here. So enter the first value is going to be 1800 like that. And you can increments of 2, so it means this should be what, 2000, 2200, on and on like that. You don't want to be doing that manually. You can automate that. So make sure that the first cell that you enter the value on is active, and then you come to the home tab and you come to the editing, click on that, and you're doing the series. So click on the series. These values are going to be in a column, so make sure the column is selected. The step value, you're increasing the value by 200 and you're going to be ending at that 600. That's the last value. Okay, and then you click OK, and that's what happens. So it does that values for you. Another way that you can do is you can enter the first two values and then you use the autofill all the way down like that. Okay, so we have done that. You're saying you to apply blue for you can do that, so I'm not going to be doing all that. Highlight that, go to the home tab and do all those things, do that formatting. After that, it asks you withdraw these places, blah blah blah, enter reference, the base cost and total cost in the appropriate cells on row 5. So row 5, this is row 5 right here. We should have a cell reference here and another cell reference right here. And the first one, so what you do is you say equal sign, and you're going to be putting the cell reference for base cost. So the base cost of the house is what? Base house price is that. Okay, and then you enter, and then you come, the next one is going to be the base cost and total cost of the house, like that, because you're trying to determine based on this different square footage what's going to be the base cost, what's going to be the total price of the house. And then after you finish that, you highlight all this, and then you'll come back to your data and you go to the Hotiv and you click on table data, and this value here is a column. So you click on the column, and this is the total square footage, which is right there, and you click OK, and you have your values filled in